I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Coach Sonny Wolfe. Coach Wolfe spent most of his career as a head football coach in the university levels in Canada. He is now retired, but I know he's still active. He had over 4 decades in coaching. I want to find out not only about his coaching career, but the man behind the career and his work ethic that brought him to where he is now. Join me in my conversation with Coach Sonny Wolfe. I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work. And as I just mentioned, I have the honor today of speaking with Coach Sonny Wolfe. Good morning, fine sir.
Good morning. Fun to be on. Looking forward to this.
Well, I just did an introduction to you, Coach, and as I just mentioned to you as well, that I had the opportunity to try out for the Acadia football team back in 1996, and then I was on it a little bit later. But rather than go through a whole summary of your career, maybe you can just give a cap of who you are, what it is that you've done in just a short amount of time. Because if anyone wanted to know who you are, there's a whole slew of interviews with you, and I don't want to bore you. Not that it does bore you of going through your whole career, but I don't want to just re-ask some of the same questions. And then just what is it you're doing now?
All right. I'll start off with how I got into coaching. I actually didn't necessarily have a plan to do that. And my brother was working with a coach of a junior football team who needed someone. My knees had just about done as much as they could in football. So I said I'd give it a shot, give it a try, and started coaching first year in junior football here in Montreal, which is where I'm located now.
Mhm.
And from there went on to coach. Oh, I'm guessing 54, 55 years, most at the university level. I would typically at this time in school team and beyond right after the football season, typically I referee high school basketball. So try to stay active, try to stay as young as you can at an advanced age by being around lots of young people. And I have been real fortunate to be able to continue as a coach and as a basketball official for all these years.
Yeah, there was a little glitch in the internet there, but as you had mentioned that you've been teaching for or coaching for four decades. You were at McGill, the College de Montreal, uh, Saint Vex, Acadia, and then now into retirement. You're still staying active, I believe, with a high school team with a as an offensive coordinator, but also refereeing basketball as well.
That's exactly right. Yeah, typically, this would be a week where we'd be into some kind of a playoff game, maybe a championship game. Just on Facebook, recently saw last year's championship pictures with the head coach. I'm the offensive coordinator at a school called LCC. We had an undefeated city championship team, and it was lots of fun. I not spent a lot of time thinking about it, but just reminiscing, having some of the kids interviewed. They were obviously real excited. So typically, I would now be ending football and starting basketball officiating.
Yeah, this year kind of puts a twist on a lot of things. Coach, I know you got into coaching after high school, not really knowing what you want to do, but could we bring you back even a little further? What would have been maybe your first job ever? Maybe as a teenager or something that you would have done to make a dollar or get out of the house?
Well, it got me out of the house, but spent a lot of time with my dad. My father had grocery stores, a couple of them, and usually Friday nights, Saturday mornings, Saturday, sometimes afternoon if I wasn't practicing football. I worked for my dad for a number of years as a teenager during my high school years, and put a couple of cents in the bank, but more than anything, learned how hard work can be.
Was that primarily what you did working for your dad's store, or did you do any other jobs as well?
Yeah, that would have been my lone experience prior to moving on and working in the packaging industry. But I worked for my dad for a number of years, including full time after high school, for about a 2 or 3 year period.
So was this your dad pulling you out of the house? Were you wanting to get some money and go to find a job, or what was the reason why you worked with your dad?
Uh, Pulling, I
It
like
was,
your expression. He pulled us. We were four boys,
yeah.
and a couple of the I'm the oldest of four, and a couple of the younger ones didn't start working until later on. But we were cheap labor, and but we learned an awful lot about life and hard work, because that was all what my dad was all about: hard work, and it was constant. And he helped get us on a track whereby all of us have had some kind of success in life. And big, I think much has to be attributed to my dad's work ethic.
So thinking of as you're stepping into coaching from high school, being in football, did you find yourself a leader at that early age, or were you quiet and shy, or did you see some leadership qualities in you even or other people seen them in you at a young age?
Well, to give you an idea of how shy I was at the beginning of my football career, my very first year, I was coaching a junior team in the Montreal area, and our first game was in Ottawa, and we had roughly a 2 hour bus trip, and halfway towards Ottawa, I think in Van Cleek Hill. It's not important where it was, but we had a team meal, and I was going to talk to the defensive team. I was a defensive line coach, and George Brancato, I'm not sure if you're familiar with his name, but George was passed away recently. He's a great football player, played in the NFL, played in the CFL, coached in the CFL for many, many years. And George was our defensive coordinator. He happened to not be available for this one game in Ottawa. And I had to talk to the defense. And I was always someone who was very reluctant to get up in class and speak.
Hmm.
It wasn't something that I was comfortable with, not at all confident. So I have no idea what I said to the team. I do know I was dressed in a suit and tie, and my jacket was absolutely drenching. It was
So,
soaking wet, weighed a ton. Somehow I got something out of my mouth, I guess, and that really made it easier. That was as tough as it's ever been for me, and I've now done hundreds of clinics, and I'm
mhm.
quite comfortable talking in front of groups, particularly when it's about football. So in terms of leadership, I felt comfortable that I knew a fair amount about the game, and I felt comfortable coaching in the sense that I knew that, or I believed I could help our players become better football players. But I learned to become a leader as things went on.
Through your 4 decades of coaching, did you ever get any other jobs? I mean, especially in your beginning time when it might have been more of an assistant position, did you have to supplement your income, or you did something just for the fun of it?
Well, just to not belabor the point, but unlike many people beyond high school, I knew that I wanted to. Well, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I realized it wasn't working for my dad forever. That was what I really wanted to do. So I spent some time working with my father, as I said earlier. Then I worked with a packaging company.
Yeah.
It took me 10 years to figure out what I really wanted to do before going to university. So there was a 10-year period between high school and university. And when I went back to university, I truly did know what I wanted to do. At that point, I was hooked on coaching, and I needed a phys ed degree in order to be able to do it on a full-time basis. So I went to McGill, got a phys ed degree there. And in terms of jobs, I worked my first 3 years as an assistant coach and part-time at McGill, and I worked full-time at a center for delinquent males, the toughest kids in Quebec, and had a great time with those guys. So I spent 3 years part-time coaching and working with delinquent kids just north of Montreal.
That leads me into a question that I have, and it's interesting that you've done that because I think football players in general, including myself, are sometimes considered a little delinquent. Not, I mean, or just athletes in general could be considered, maybe off and doing their own thing. Could you comment on, in your experience of seeing rookies or young people coming up into sport and into football in particular, and then you see them, say, cross the stage when they graduate, and even years later when you see them, how that transition, that, I mean, there must be a joy in that, a satisfaction, and you've learned a lot over the years on how that transformation can happen in these young fellows' lives.
Yeah, I guess the place where it would be easiest to see one's growth would be at a school like Acadia, more so than McGill, where you don't
Yeah.
see them all of the time. You see them during the football season, you see them during workouts, during the off season. But at Acadia, literally, you saw all of your players on a daily basis, and you would often see a young man drive up prior to the beginning of school for our training camp with their parents, and oftentimes they would have a hard time looking you in the eye. They were shy. They were going to experience something that was completely new to them, being away for the first time in many cases. And then you see them 4 years later walking chests out, certainly looking everyone's in the eye, and the development over a 4-year period at the university. And I do believe that there's a greater opportunity to grow at a school like Acadia when you're away from your folks in a new environment than at McGill. And that has nothing to do with the educational value of the
Yeah.
two places, but just the growth opportunity for a young person is, I believe, outstanding when you're away from your folks. Nothing wrong with having a real solid relationship with your family, but in order to grow, I think being on your own in that kind of a setting is just a great opportunity to find out who you are, learn a lot about life, and leave 4 years later. In some cases, starting as a boy and leaving as a man, and there's great satisfaction in seeing that kind of development.
Yeah, if anyone's familiar with Wolfeville, Nova Scotia, and Acadia University knows that it's an intimacy that you grow to appreciate. While small, there's just so much to, and I even heard you speak about it, and I had similar memories of running down, running along the dikes or something, running down the street. It's just a calming, soothing place that's, is part of your life and you'll never let it go. I've also heard you speak about your own growth as a coach and wanting to win, and then having some guidance in your own life, and then realizing to embrace the process of what you're going through as, the season or as a career. Could you comment on that? How to embrace the process, and that might even relate into everyday life and other people's employment and work.
Yeah, I suspect I was very much like any young coach initially. It's not completely about winning, but it's not far from completely being about winning on a regular basis and winning games. And over time, you have a much better sense for, as you say, the process, and how much a sport like football, being a part of a demanding opportunity, can truly work wonders with young people. I haven't coached another game. I played some basketball, now officiate basketball. So I sense that all sports can provide a young youth with opportunities to grow, but I don't know there's anything quite like football. The demands of practicing and working out for about 9 months to play for 3. That's quite unusual. And many of the players never touch a football. They spend 9 months preparing for a season where the only time they'll see a ball is maybe prior to practice when they're throwing it around a little bit with their buddies.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a tremendous amount of dedication that's required to play the very special game of football. And that being the case, I did find initially some great role models. One of them being Charlie Baillie, who was the head coach at McGill. My first full-time coaching would have been at McGill when Charlie was the head coach, and I was the defensive coordinator for an 8-year period. And at that time, football wasn't at all like it is today, in the sense that a school like McGill probably have 4 or 5 full-time football coaches. Now, Laval probably have 7 or 8, and most of the schools in the country have multiple guys coaching full-time. When I was at McGill first time, I was the lone full-time coach. Even the head coach, Charlie Baillie, was an assistant coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I, being the youngest guy on staff, was initially I guess, voted or relegated to be the one who would room with Charlie on the road. And no one else was really keen to do that because Charlie loves cigars. And Charlie and I would be up prior to a game. He also liked Scotch. So the Scotch was able, having a couple of glasses of Scotch helped me deal with the cigar smoke. And we would talk about life. We would talk about football. We would talk about our team. And Charlie was convinced and helped convince me over time. I was the young guy, wanted to win. He wanted to win as badly as I did, but he had a better sense for why we were doing what we were doing. And over time, I became one who still wanted to win and do anything and everything that you could that would provide your young athletes with their best opportunity on a Saturday afternoon to go out and do battle, at least on a par with the opponents, if not being a little bit better than them.
Coach, I recall you being a tremendous squash player. Is that not correct? Or racquetball, squash, very similar. And everybody wanted a piece of you, but they couldn't beat you. It was a very difficult. What do you do now? And you mentioned your knees, like even from years before. So what do you do now to stay active? I know you're the offensive coordinator and referee, but thinking of my show of Why We Work, I have the opportunity to interview a lot of people getting into work, people that are in the height of their career, and people that are retired. And I think all of these stories have great value for listeners. So how is it, or what is it you're doing now? And how do you stay motivated and to stay productive?
Okay, I guess you asked a couple of things in that question. To start with, in terms of trying to stay physically fit, which I think is hugely important, I did run a lot. I did play an awful lot of racquetball. I can no longer do those things, so I walk a tremendous amount virtually every day during the football season. While you're not running a lot, you're still active. We move drills. I coach the quarterback as well, or quarterbacks, and oftentimes throw the ball with them. So I stay active during the football season. During basketball, there's actually quite a bit of running. At 77, trying to stay in
You
front
look good
of.
for 77, if I can interrupt there for a moment. You're doing pretty well.
Appreciate that. But the basketball is a great conditioner. And one of the things that I tell other folks trying to get them to officiate is that generally you would have to pay to go to a gym. In this instance, they're paying you to come to a gym, get a good workout. And so those are the kinds of things that I try to do from a physical perspective to stay as fit as I can. I think in order to be mentally fit, in order to be able to go out and be a good official, be a good football coach, I think there has to be a level of physical fitness. So to me, that's something that's very important. Then I don't know that there's anything that I prefer reading other than football journals. Now, it used to be that I would go to a lot of clinics. There's not a need to do it to the same degree anymore because there's so much online. There's some outstanding coaches that you're able to tap into their wisdom by going to their sites and on occasion becoming a member of certain associations. But it's something that I believe deeply that if you're going to be good at anything, you cannot ever let yourself feel like, okay, I now have all the answers. No one has all the answers, so I'm still today looking for answers. How do I teach a quarterback to read in an easier way? How do I make it clearer for him? How do I help him with his footwork? How do I help him with his confidence level? So I'm always looking to those people who are at the cutting edge and trying to read books on occasion, but more than anything, there's just so much information online. I just love devouring. I devour that stuff.
Looking back, and I guess you probably had a similar question about satisfaction, but thinking in retirement, what sort of, where do your eyes gaze to in looking at the satisfaction of maybe looking over your career or where you are now? How do you gauge that?
Well, one of the things that maybe some people would find it a little odd, I really enjoy going on Facebook and not to read political things as much as see what our guys are up to. There's tremendous, there's I'm not a group football
Yep.
Acadia guys, and
Yeah.
people are constantly letting us know what's going on in their life. So it's very, very interesting being able to try to stay in touch with where guys are in their life, what they're doing, what their accomplishments are. It's particularly fun to see guys who are still coaching, not still coaching, they're young,
Yeah.
but the number of guys that I spent time with who are coaching today and coaching in some cases at pretty high levels. So just trying to see what has happened to the guys that you spend time with, and you hope that you paid it. You spend some time with them that was positive, that has helped them get to where they are, to aspire and attain goals that were important to them.
Well, I know we share the same coach, or it would have been your players, Coach Sappus or Coach Happy, Steve, Steve, and he just retired recently. And I mean,
I saw
looking
that.
back and just saying, oh, he had a great career as a coach. And, he
Yeah.
worked in the sports recreation department and had a great career. And those sorts of things I can see as being um, satisfaction to looking back and saying that you've had a part. And I know he said that you had a great part in his life.
Yeah, it's ironic that you talk about Steve Sappus. The very first player that I recruited to go to Acadia was Steve Sappus. He was playing in an all-star game in Toronto, high school all-star game. And they, at that time in Toronto, and I suspect still do have a huge number of high school teams. So I went to practice to see, I knew about 3 or 4 kids who we were very interested in recruiting. And then the guy who was always at the bottom of the pile, who had the dirtiest sweater and worked the hardest, was Steve Sappus. Maybe not the best player on the field, but certainly as dedicated as anyone. Yeah. And I don't want to diminish his skills as a football player, because he became a very, very good linebacker for us. But the first thing I noticed about Happy was, boy, no one wanted to compete at a higher level than he did. And I think he was a little surprised that there was the interest in him from our school that I showed, and real pleased that he came. And you're right, he had a great career, was very instrumental, I think, at Acadia over a long period of time, and helped many youngsters.
He knows this about that. I've said this about him. I was not a good good football player, but one time and I think in front of the DBs, he's like, "Brian, you're a good athlete." And I just took that. I think, and that's part of what he saw in you, as you're saying, he may not have been the best, but, he was there, he was dedicated, and he took that sort of character trait from you to find the best in people and to encourage them wherever they are and hope to further them along in what it is they plan on doing.
Mm-hmm.
Coach, what is it people may not understand about you, and maybe what you tried to accomplish, maybe not consciously, but you were just trying to do something they don't understand, that you would like people to understand better about you, and maybe where you are now or in your career over the last 4 decades?
Well, I'm not sure that I'm that well known by that many people, other than guys that I coached with, coached against, and actually coached. But what I look back on my life, and can't believe how fortunate I've been. I had not ever interviewed for a position until I interviewed for the Acadia job, and I interviewed one other time, and that was to get the job at McGill. So I've just been in the right place at the right time. I'm not sure. Charlie Baillie, who was the head coach at McGill, hired me because we had worked together at Sir George Williams University, which is now part of Concordia University. So Charlie hired me because we knew one another. When he needed a defensive coordinator, Charlie hired me. Then the one time that I applied for a job, and I really applied for the position at Acadia to get the experience of applying for a job, so that when I saw something, I didn't know that much about Acadia. I knew something about it because I knew at that time, I replaced John Heward, who won 2 national championships. So I knew about them through the success that they had in their conference. I've been just so fortunate, to spend your whole life doing something that you're passionate about, that you enjoy. It's not always easy. There's a lot of hard work that goes into football, and particularly the recruiting aspect of it. But every day you wake up and there's a great challenge, and you're excited to go to the office. You're excited, in particular, on Saturday afternoon playing a game, and that's why you work as hard as you do, in order to go out and challenge yourself and challenge your athletes playing against another good university football program.
Coach, knowing that you're from Montreal, but you spent almost 2 decades in Wolfeville, Nova Scotia, I think I would be amiss to get your summary, not your idea of Wolfeville, aside from football, just, to put it on the map, to say what you thought of this place for the 2 decades that you spent there.
Initially, I think you can be in Chicago and Montreal or Wolfeville, and coaching is the same. You wake up early, you go into the office and it's dark, you come home at night and it's dark. So from a coaching perspective, you can be almost anywhere, and not very much changes.
Yeah.
What is so different and so unique about a small college town, see, those folks who were there in many instances are coming from away. Certainly we met and became quite friendly with folks from the Wolfeville area, but
Yeah.
more often than not, the profs and the other coaches were coming from places other than Wolfeville, Nova Scotia. What I found about the small town, and what we appreciated, my wife Denise and myself, was how important friends are. We had family in Quebec and Montreal, both my wife and myself, but we had no family in Nova Scotia and Wolfeville. But we made great friends, and the lifestyle there is so laid back. It was just 19 years of absolute joy. And actually, I did spend 1 season in Antigonish, so that was kind
Yes.
of fun.
Yeah.
Go into enemy's territory and
Saint of X. Yeah.
and coach them. And actually, one of the most semi-sweet experiences that I ever had in
Yeah.
football was being the offensive coordinator at St. FX, coming back to Acadia in the semifinal game and beating them in the 4th quarter. We were down by 2 touchdowns, and our quarterback, who was our 3rd string quarterback, just had an unbelievable 4th quarter. We ended up winning the game. And there's absolute joy because you helped the team do what they were hoping to do, which was win a huge game.
Yeah.
But then I saw on the field teary-eyed 5th-year players who I'd recruited. So it was, as I say, a semi-sweet experience. It was just absolute joy on the one hand, and then seeing some guys who I love, seeing them bawling their eyes out on the field was tough, but things happen.
It's funny, you and I probably both, you can just imagine Wolfville. You can imagine every street, almost every tree, every monument, because it's so small. It's, it's a cute little town. Coach, what about a tool that you've used as coaching, maybe even now as a referee or in your offensive coordinating position, a tool that is most efficient for you that maybe a coach, an up and coming coach would, maybe as a whistle, might be a chalkboard, whiteboard, might be a laptop nowadays. What was very vital for you to be efficient in your job and in your work?
I'm not sure it would be a tool so much as my real strong sense that preparation is the key to anything and everything that I've done. Particularly around coaching. I'd always tell our guys that if they worked hard enough and they were well enough prepared, they could go in and be confident. And that was similar to the way I would try to prepare, in the sense that every student who has spent a huge number of hours prior to a test goes in feeling confident. Similarly, I think in your preparation to coach, and your preparation to recruit, and your preparation to go onto the field and practice, if you've spent the appropriate amount of time and done the research that's required in any aspect, I think preparation is the key to confidence, and confidence the key to success.
Thinking of that, and maybe it's the same answer of what tip would you give to listeners about work in general if they're starting their job thinking, of your dad's grocery store or your packing position, even those sorts of jobs, people getting into work for the first time, or as you taking a 10-year hiatus or a thinking period and then getting into coaching, what sort of advice we have for people getting into work?
Oh goodness, confidence to me is the key, and I think I'm repeating myself a little bit.
Mm,
Preparation is the key to
yeah,
confidence.
yeah.
Almost regardless of the position, and I've not spent much time doing anything other than coaching. But I can't I can't believe that it wouldn't be equally important. Almost any position that you would hold in any field, if you're the best prepared individual, I suspect that you're going to have great success. And passion is hugely important too. I mean, it's easy to be passionate when you're coaching, but I believe if you're going to be successful in any walk of life, yeah, being passionate about it. And I know some people, that it's not easy to be passionate about something that isn't all that much where there isn't that much enjoyment in what you do professionally. But if you can find something that you are passionate about, and I know that's maybe belittling, something that you hear too often, but to me, it's so true. Passionate people are likely to prepare, and if you're prepared, you're going to be confident, and therefore will have great success.
Coach, I only have a few more questions for you. This
Sure.
this next one is more of career and character, and being retired now and looking back, and I have a sense that there's lots of people that try to attain a career versus trying to be of character in whatever career they're in. So they're looking more at how high they can get rather than, maybe how wide they can affect the people that they're working with. How did you balance your idea of trying to attain a career and bringing a character of integrity into your work?
Oh goodness! If you're going to be asking an athlete or a co-coach or a coach working for you to give their best, to be the best that they can be, I think that only can take place if they have great confidence in you as an individual. And the character element is a huge part of that. I think that your athletes, as soon as they see any aspect of phoniness, playing with the rules a little bit, I think you lose a tremendous amount of respect. And the likelihood that you can lead people when there's any doubt as to your competence, your
Mm-hmm.
character. I'm not sure there's a hope in heck that you're going to be able to do something with someone relative to being there for them when they need you, being able to ask them to give everything that they have of themselves. They have to see in that individual and the leader someone who has true character and positive character, honesty, and all the good stuff.
As a coach in university, you are in a unique position to be in between students and athletes, like really in between their ability to continue on or not continue on. What is your view of education now, whether formal or just hands-on experience or trades? How do you value education and what you've seen in athletes and even just in regular experience?
One of the things that was somewhat difficult to get young folks to buy into is the importance of education. So many athletes, particularly those who are fairly high achieving athletes or flat out high achieving athletes, uh, know that if I get 18 credit hours, I'll be eligible. And their goal isn't to get an education, their goal is to go to the NFL. Just recently talking with a coach at a real outstanding, a coach of a real outstanding high school program just south of the city of Montreal. And he was talking about having 53 kids, you know, on his team, and all 53 think they're going to the NFL. And it's his role, and it was my role, to try to get them to understand, even if you are that good,
Yeah,
the NFL career is going to be 4 years.
sure. Yeah.
There's a 40-year career outside of football, and you better take care of having an opportunity to be successful outside of football. Certainly football for those guys who are the high achieving guys and go on to have great careers. It will help them in some instances open doors, but yeah, it was a real challenge and continues to be a challenge for coaches. Just as I said last week, talking with the guy who today has the same challenges I had 40 years ago, getting guys to understand how important this education can be relative to you having a satisfying life.
Coaches, they're thinking of my listeners of why we work and the difficulties people have along the way, thinking of adversity and how sports has a lot of adversity just in, you know, third down and long or but in losing and but the adversity people face on a daily basis. Do you have any final words of encouragement for people who face adversity and knowing that, you know, you can have this loss, but you know, maybe tomorrow there might be a win, however small it is, and they say football is a game of inches. Do you have any words of encouragement for people in their work?
Again, I'm not, I haven't had that many experiences other than
Yeah.
coaching, but I believe that what I did experience in coaching, there'd be more up days than there'd be down days, but it's not always easy. When you recruit, as an example, there's a quarterback that could make a huge difference to you, and you have a great relationship with him, with his family, and you believe that, boy, it looks like we have a real good shot, but you're not going to get them all, and so you do lose out on some great athletes. But you can't let that be a big enough drag on the balance of your recruiting. You've got to find a way to get back up, and sometimes I would go for a bit of a walk, or I'd run, read a real positive passage from some coach, and get on the phone and find the second best quarterback that you were hoping to get, and just go after it. So, you know, I think everybody has their own style, or needs their own style. Reading positive materials, listening to some of the Tony Robbins kind of a guy. You know, there's some motivating information out there. Some of it online, some of it via books. I think there's a way where you can grab hold of something after a loss and say, okay, yeah, they got me, it got me, but tomorrow's another day, and we're going to make tomorrow work.
You humbly say that you've mostly done coaching, but in all of life outside of sports, most people refer back to coaching that say life is like coaching or life is like sports. So obviously there's the intermingling of the two. Coach, how can people, you mentioned Facebook, how can people get in touch with you if they're just wanting to know anything about coaching or sports in general, maybe want to have a talk?
Well, probably the easiest would be via my email address, which is my name, sonny.wolfe@mcgill.ca. Love talking about coaching, love talking about leadership, love talking about just life in general. So being a retired guy, particularly at this during this pandemic, there's lots of hours available, and anyone who would want to talk about coaching or anything they think I might be able to help them with, I'm absolutely interested in doing whatever I can.
Coach, I have one final question, and that is, why do you work?
Oh goodness, I'm retired
You're
as of
still working
60.
though. You're still
Yeah,
working.
and how can you not? I mean, I write a column, a weekly column for Canada Football Chat, which is predominantly a recruiting tool that is run by a couple of ex-players from Acadia. So I enjoy doing that. It takes up best part of one day every week, but it forces me to do something that I enjoy. I'm writing about. I'm not a great writer, but I love football, and I have a fair amount of experience in the game and some real what I believe to be important ideas and thoughts. So I work because if I didn't, why be here? I mean,
Absolutely.
there's got to be a reason for getting up other than having a good cold beer late in the day. But so to me, work is life.
I heard it said, if a man don't work, a man don't eat. So I think that's just in lines with that as well. Coach Sonny
Absolutely.
Wolfe, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure, sir.
Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate your interest. And again, thank you.
Thank you, sir.